To work out the fraction of a value, there are several ways in which we could explore this, but I want to give you only what I consider to be the most common sense way of doing it, and also in my opinion I think it's the easiest. Let me start with a simple example. We're asked to find 2/3 of 12. Now I'm going to ask you to disregard for a second the fact that you might be able to do this straight away in your head, because it's the method that I want us to develop, and it's a method that we can then apply to questions that aren't so necessarily obvious. Also, the level of difficulty I'm approaching here, I'm only looking at questions that lead to whole number answers, not questions that lead to decimal answers. This method, by the way, would work for that, but that's not what interests me at the moment. Now, what I do know is how to find 1/3 of 12. To find 1/3 of 12, well, I just take 12 and divide it by 3. And in this case, I can just quickly work that out to be 4. So 1/3 of 12 equals 4. So then we can very quickly say, if 1/3 of 12 equals to 4, 2/3 of 12 must equal 2 lots of that, which is equal to 8. Now consider what I've done here. I started with the 12, and then I did two things. I divided it by the bottom value, or to use the correct math term, I divided it by the denominator, and then I multiplied it by the top value. I multiplied it by the numerator, and that essentially is the method the advocate is using to work out the fraction of any value. Let's do another simple example. Let's do 3/4 of 20. Now remember, we're going to divide by the bottom number and times by the top number. So our two jobs are divide by 4, then times by 3. So we've laid out the jobs we need to do in order. So doing that first job, well, 4 into 20, well, that goes in 5 times. And so then we'll simply do 5 times 3, which equals 15. So 3/4 of 20 equals 15. And you can see by laying it out this way, I'm starting to just remember the method, and therefore it starts to become a little bit more efficient. For our final example, I want to do one that's a little bit more challenging. Let's find 4/5 of 155, and we would struggle to do this in our heads. And remember what we did before, we thought about what steps we had to do. Well, the two steps will be start by dividing by the bottom value, which in this case is divide by 5, and then once we've got that answer, we'll multiply that by the top value. We'll multiply that by 4. Okay, so let's start with step 1. We'll do 5 into 155. Now 5 into 1 doesn't go, so then we say 5 into 15, which is 3 times, and look where I record that value 3 above the end of that 15, and then 5 into this 5, which is just equal to 1. So 1/5 of 155 is 31. So we've then got, for our second step, take that 31 and multiply it by 4. This one we can't do in our heads, not a problem, we've got methods of doing it. I'll use the column method of multiplying. You might have another method you prefer, for example the grid method. 1 times 4 is 4, 3 times 4 is 12, so I'm reckoning my final answer that 4/5 of 155 is 124. And there we have it. I hope that was of some use. Thank you.